Hi everyone, welcome to the Car Chat podcast. I'm Sam Moores, and with us today we have Matas Buzelis. Hello.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, as you already introduced me, I am currently the head of communications at Car Vertical. Car Vertical is actually a pretty fresh platform for car history checking. But in the industry, in the automotive industry, I've been in about 10 years. So before I was even a motoring journalist. After that, I've been working with automotive classifieds. So basically, that's more than 10 years in the industry. I'm also the president of the Association of Automotive Intelligence. This is our newly established initiative for them to bring the more transparent used car market.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm a big fan of cool cars, and I'm a petrol head, should I say?
Yeah. So so when you sort of started off, how did you end up? Did you go straight into automotive journalism, or did you have a little path on the way there?
While I was studying, I was looking for a job that I could, because at that time I had a quite a rare car, an A86, the Toyota Corolla
Oh,
GT.
yeah.
Yeah, which is exclusively rare here, but I needed money, so I was looking for a job, for a side job, and eventually I found, you have this Autocar magazine. So
Mm-hmm.
we had this franchise in Lithuania, and I was basically translating text from English to Lithuanian.
Ah,
And I was, getting to know people in the automotive media. I was introduced to them, and the contacts were spreading, and I was like, getting to this industry step by step, slowly. So eventually, yeah, I found myself. I translated a lot of text. I've been working this job, which was like a part-time job for like 4 years. But at that time, I was looking for a better paid job, and yeah, the journalist position was looking very nice because, well, you also write text, but you get this. These cars to try, which is perhaps
yeah,
the cherry of this of the job. I still
yeah.
miss it, because we used to try a lot of cars. Perhaps it was not the best. I mean, it's very different from what the best journalists in UK test, really, because
What
we
sort of
tested
thing?
cars like, it's like Dacia Duster, which I
Yeah,
particularly like. The car. I
yeah.
think it's quite funky, but it's mostly mainstream cars. We don't get exotics or very powerful cars, and if we do, then we are very limited in terms of what can we do with that car.
Yeah.
We can't push them to the limit. so
Yeah, it's quite
so yeah.
different to what you see from, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a magazine that goes like Top Gear magazine in the UK. The
Yeah,
stuff they do, they're like, oh yeah, lend me this latest whatever, and then I'm going to go
yeah,
and drive it 3,000 miles. And you're like,
exactly.
I,
We can't do that. For instance, in the UK, perhaps journalists get cars for like a week or something like this.
mm,
We don't. If we get the car for a weekend, it's wow. It's a
yeah,
lot. You can do a lot with a car. You can make like 500 miles trip. But usually it's for the evening. In the morning you have to bring
yeah,
it back. So and we don't have, since my country is relatively flat. We don't have a lot of windy roads, so we don't get like a place where we can test the car to the limit.
yeah.
Which
Does
we
that,
all want to do. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Does that change the types of cars people buy?
I think I think it's pretty it's it's like a freight train, as I say. The used car market is like a freight train. Once it get going, you cannot stop it, you cannot turn it. It has so much inertia, if you know what I mean. So for instance, if people started buying cars like they got used to German cars, especially in our country, in Lithuania, it's little likely it will change rapidly.
Mm.
It's little likely they will instantly start buying, French cars
Yeah,
or
yeah.
Japanese cars. In the new car market, yeah, things are pretty more dynamic, but in used car market, it's very conservative, should I say? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel like at the moment we're going through a bit of a transition like that,
yeah,
where if you'd asked me or probably most of my friends, like, what sort of car would you be aiming to have? Most people were some sort of German saloon, whatever,
yeah,
state, some,
yeah,
something. That was the sort of kind of the bar. And then if you
yeah,
go above that, exotics, whatever, like
yeah,
British, Italian, etc., etc. But definitely moving into EVs, like from my personal choice, there's so many other brands now that I look at and go, they're doing good things.
yeah,
And this historical Germanness, for
yeah.
example, is taking a real beating, specifically in EVs, I would say. Do you
Yeah,
think,
yeah.
do you see that?
I mean, I treat EVs as next generation cars in general. I mean, the way we drive, the way they perform in the straight line, the easiness of operating a car is on another level. It's not even comparable to conventional cars, I think. So it's basically they are more smart, smarter
Mm,
than these cars with internal combustion engines. Um, I think even the absence of manual transmission makes it so much easier to operate and to start driving. It's easy as never been before. So
yeah,
yeah, I think EVs are the next generation cars in general. But that being said, that they still have some problems like the conventional cars had. For instance,
yeah,
when it comes to the topics about, for example, the used car market, the fraud that basically was for the cars with the petrol and diesel engines, it still is there in the electric cars sector.
So do you mean
So
things
that
like clocking and stuff like that?
exactly. Because when I found myself in Car Vertical, which is a company, I think 5 years old company, and 2 years we are already operating in the UK, we observe that the level of fraud is not going away. That people are still
Yeah,
clocking cars and masking damages. For example, if the car had a severe damage, they try to sell it like a good car, and because of this information asymmetry between the seller and the buyer, the sellers, well, it is likely they have more information or different information than the buyers.
yeah,
And because of this asymmetry, they are still clocking the car and faking damages and taking more money for that particular car. So it's not going away. And the same is for the electric, for the petrol, and for the diesel cars. It doesn't matter what generation is the
yeah.
car.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, that one, because
Yeah,
I was looking at just chatting to a friend about Ferrari 458s recently, and we reckon, like in the UK, I'm going to make a
yeah,
bit of a claim here, but if you look at used Ferrari 458s, none of them have done many miles. None.
yeah,
They're
yeah.
all under like 10,000 miles. All of them, every single one.
Wow,
And
wow.
well, okay, maybe not quite, but like most of
Yeah,
them have not done very much. And I remember when they came out, I remember in the years afterwards, you always see people driving them. People were driving their cars. Yet none of them seem to have been driven that much. And I don't think,
Yeah,
like, if you bought one now, you're going to drive it.
yeah,
So a lot of those cars, a lot of cars have been clocked. We sort of know that it was quite easy to do at the time. But how do you, how do you get information to sort of counter that if it's all digital and someone can get their laptop and just change the numbers, some ones and zeros and whatever?
yeah.
How do you combat that?
This is the thing that cars are advancing, and so is technology, and so are the scammers. So they are getting some tools to tamper with information, with car data. And if clocking was a physical thing to do 20 years ago,
Yeah.
it's not physical now. Yeah. Now you just connect to the car and you replace numbers here and there, and yeah, that's it really. But our platform, with this platform, with Car Vertical, we decided to fight this. So we take information from many data sources. We have, I think, more than 900 data sources till this day. And we connect events like damage event, technical check, technical inspection, MOT inspection, car registration facts, things like that. And if these events have odometer readings,
Yeah.
it's good, because then you can see what was the graph of mileage,
Yeah.
And sometimes we see severe drops, I don't particularly know many examples when it comes to exotic cars. But for example, we saw some cars in Finland, some taxi cars that had
Yeah.
800,000 kilometers, which is, I think, about 500,000 miles.
Yeah.
And they were rollbacked to 200,000 kilometers, which is 120,000 miles.
Yeah.
So imagine this: you're buying this car, and then you're like, you don't know the schedule of the maintenance because it's way
Yeah.
off. It's gone. So huge problem. And our data guys, they told that cars with clocked mileage, they usually cost up to 25% more than the same
Yeah.
cars. So this is a big thing, and yeah, we must fight that.
Yeah. It's mental. And I guess if you can get all those data points, or lots of data points, every time the car's had something done,
Yeah,
if it's been logged, then actually your scope for clocking and getting, not getting caught is quite tricky, because you've got, let's say,
exactly.
a year, and you
Yeah,
can only do the number of miles you've done in a year. If it's, say, a high-end sports car or something, and then you can put it
exactly.
back to, but it has to kind of be a reasonable number down.
Yeah,
So it still needs to go up. But yeah, when you do something like a car with 800,000 kilometers back down to 200, most people would look at the car and go, well, it's done a lot of kilometers anyway.
yeah.
I don't know. But the value difference, as you say, is huge.
Yeah, yeah. There are also some tools that install. You can install some devices to the car, and what they do basically is they reduce the rate of mileage, like how the
Yeah.
odometer works. For instance, if you done 100 miles, it shows that
Yeah.
you done 10.
Yeah. Wow.
How to fight this? It's impossible. It's impossible. I mean, the only thing that you can basically do is to inspect the car physically, to assess the wear and tear of the interior, to compare
Yeah.
the things, the aspects of the car, and then try to connect it with the mileage. And in some cases, it might not make sense. So
Yeah.
this,
Yeah. The interior is quite a good one, isn't it? Because not many people are
yeah,
going to replace interior stuff. So,
yeah,
but you still need your sort of data points, don't you? You still need to go, well, this is what a typical 20,000, 50, 100, 300 looks like, and then
exactly.
pull it together. How does
Even though if they replace some parts, for instance, it's very easy to replace a seat or a
yeah,
steering wheel. It's really easy. But they usually don't replace things like floor mats, like
yeah,
door panels. It's windows, because the windows are going up and down, and you can all see all these scratches, on the side windows.
mm,
So there are parts that needed to be looked very very thoroughly, in detail, because they say God is in details. It
yeah.
really is, I think.
It
Yeah,
it just makes it as like a buyer, it makes buying, let's say, a private sale significantly more interesting, because you're kind of, if you bought it, you bought it. That's it. You're not
yeah,
taking it back. The person's going to go,
yeah.
yeah, whatever, do one. Whereas a dealership, if you found
Hmm.
out, ultimately they are sort of liable. But it
Yeah,
is, no one gives you clear, you're not getting someone in for every single car that's a specialist
exactly.
on that particular car that will tell you how much it's being used or not. It's a
Exactly.
really tricky situation. When I was sort of intrigued by this, where a friend brought it up recently, where he actually knew his car had been crashed, but he put it into a normal, what is it, HPI check, and nothing came up.
Yeah,
And then you put it
yeah.
into a website like yours. I think it was actually yours, and it showed pictures of the crash and stuff like that, or the
Yeah,
crash damage. How
yeah.
do you get that data? Like, who gives you that, and is it sort of readily available, or how do you pull that stuff in?
Yeah. Well, we work with as I said, a lot of data sources, and we have, among these sources there are like our partners, like classifieds, for example,
Mm,
in some countries. There are governmental institutions like car registries and
yeah,
even things like that. But we also have some private data providers which are providing us with things that it's more tricky to get, but in the end, uh, the benefit for the end user, for the car buyer, is massive, because, well, as we say, any used car is basically a cat in the bag. You get this bag, there is a cat, and you don't know what kind of cat, what is the character of the cat,
yeah,
what, you don't even know the age, even though, for example, when you go out to the shop and you buy a piece of meat, for instance, you see an expiry date.
yeah.
But when you buy a used car, you don't see any expiry dates,
No,
so but you're paying so much more.
so much more.
Yeah, so that's the idea of the product, and of the data variety. I mean, we connect a lot of data sources every year, to make it better and better, to fight fraud, because, for example, in the UK, things are not really that bad as in the mainland Europe. uh,
Okay.
you don't have a big market of imported cars, because, well, they are slightly
Yeah.
different, let's say, than in the rest of
Yeah.
the in Europe, because of the steering wheel is on the right
Yeah.
hand side, but in mainland Europe, the cross-border movement of cars is massive. I think in 1 year there are more than 2 million cars exported from Germany. And Germany is the largest used car exporter. And so all
Yeah.
the cars from Germany are going basically mostly to east and to the
Hmm.
south, and in the West, the trust and the transparency in the used car market is better. So in the East, it's worse, and we
Okay.
have this. It's endless, I think, and historically, it was like this 20 years ago. It is now, I think, in the future it will also be.
Yeah.
So in the UK, then you don't have this import, as I said. Well, all the imported cars are. I assume there are quite a lot of exotic or muscle cars from the United States. There is
Yeah. Not a
a
lot.
yeah, maybe not a lot, but out of the whole
Yeah.
imported cars. Then maybe you have some cars from Middle East, and there are cars from Japan, perhaps,
Yeah.
which is also imported cars. So yeah, but it's nowhere near when it comes to the imported car scale or levels
Yeah.
in the mainland Europe. So the cross-border movement of cars, this is the reason why the data gets changed. Why the
Yeah.
mileage goes from 800,000 to 200,000.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a really tricky one as well because everyone's involved in it. Like, well, let's say, for example, you curb a wheel, whatever.
yeah,
Lots of people curb wheels, and you get it refurbed.
yeah,
You might get it done well or not. And
yeah.
then in a year's time, you might sell the car, or you might get it done just before you sell the car, or the dealership might do it, whoever's done it. But no one is going to tell the buyer. No
Exactly.
one would mention that whatsoever. And you go, okay, that's fine. But
Yeah,
it might not actually be a good refurb. And if you don't know your stuff, you're not going to see it. But down the
exactly,
line, it's worth less. Like it is
exactly.
worth a bit less. And I feel like all sellers, definitely in the car world, are ultimately you're invested. You're invested in not giving all of the information. You kind of go, you can have a look around the car, look at whatever you like. I'm not
Exactly.
going to tell you anything until you specifically ask me, has
Yeah,
this happened? Has this happened? Has this happened? Which
yeah,
must it's got to affect all used car prices, because if they're all a bit rubbish, if all
yeah,
cars are like a bit worse than they say they are, then all cars are worth a bit less because people are going to pay less because they don't believe you when you sell them a car. They're like, yeah, but you're not telling
exactly,
me the full stuff. So I'm going to
exactly.
price in the information. I've seen it on a
Yeah,
small level on, let's say, eBay. If you
yeah,
give all the information, you say everything, you photograph everything, you get the best price.
yeah, yeah,
Whereas lots of people assume that if you put one photo up, then people will
exactly.
just buy it, but the buyers don't.
You
It's
know, you know, the example of a curved wheel is a good one because sometimes you can also damage the wheel alignment. It can be off, and when you come to buy a car, you should inspect what is the tire tread depth,
yeah,
and sometimes one wheel is way more,
yeah,
it's gone basically. So
yeah.
so that yeah, you have to look to any details, and even though if it was damaged, and if the damage was not logged by the insurers or anywhere else,
Yeah,
it means you're not going to find anything. So this is the problem of information. It's not all digital,
yeah. So
and yeah,
if a car gets damaged,
yeah,
let's say I went out, crashed my car, and I know this, and I go, I'm going to get someone to repair it, but I'm not going to use it. Let's say you don't use insurance.
yeah.
Does that automatically mean it doesn't exist? Or does it really depend?
This is a tricky one. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it goes to the shadow, to the gray market. It's
Yeah.
impossible to monitor everything. I think there will never be a tool that can detect such cases. I think it's impossible because if I hit a tree, and if I simply, like, I need to replace the front bumper, the fender, and the headlight. If I buy these parts and I do it myself, all the job,
Yeah.
it's not going to be visible in the history.
No.
But
So,
I think it's not a lot of cars that are
no.
treated like this. But when it is, it's usually bad. You can see some tracks of like cheap damage, cheap repairs. So yeah,
So
buyers
one of,
need to be aware, and they need to be curious.
yeah. And I think it's probably through you guys. I've seen, we've worked with a lot of influencers and whatever. And so
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of
yeah.
examples
We're
of
good
like,
at this. We're
I
good at this.
searched for this car. It looks
Yeah,
fine. And then let's run it through the system. And you go, oh, it's not fine.
yeah,
But so presumably, if it's gone through insurance, that's one of your data sources. I know that if I've ever put anything through insurance, which is normally someone's driven into a parked car or something, which is incredibly annoying, but it goes through insurance. And then for the next 10 years, I'll get a phone call from someone saying, we know you were involved in an accident. Like, come on, guys. Can you not sell my data that quickly? Like, just.
yeah, yeah,
But then you guys
yeah.
love it as well. You're like, yeah, we'll buy it. We'll buy it. Give it to us. Give it to us. Is presumably one of the things that you would like is for someone like Auto Trader or whatever, or all dealerships to post your report on the sale. Are you trying to push for that?
Yeah, we're trying. You know, it's kind of difficult to get into the UK market because the competition in this sector is already it's intense. It's not easy to fight,
Yeah.
competitors because they are. When we enter the UK market, and we entered the UK market with our elbows out, we went
Yeah.
out to the influencers, and they're doing really a great job, I think. But we had to improve it a lot to get it to the really competitive level. So it's difficult. It's really difficult, I think our influencer marketing team, we had over the last year in 2022, we had 4,500 of videos with our
Oh, wow.
integrations, which is a lot
That is,
globally,
yeah.
as we operate in, I think, 27 different countries. So it's a lot. I think in UK we have about 500 videos in the last year, which is
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
a big
That's a
thing.
lot.
Because without this, to scale the product, it's very difficult. To get to the media, it's difficult. To prove our point to some classified websites like, I don't know, Piston Heads
Yeah.
or the Gumtree or anything like this, it's also difficult. But in reality, for the end user, it's very convenient, and it should be done, I think, one way or
It's
another.
because I only really looked at it from if I'm going to buy a car, I might use a website like yours to look
Yeah.
through the history. But now I'm thinking about it, it makes a lot more sense if I'm selling a car. If
Yeah.
I'm selling a car and I know it's good.
Yeah.
If I don't know it,
Exactly.
if I know it's not good,
Yeah.
then I wouldn't
Then
do it. But
you
if I
might be
know it's,
nervous. Yeah.
yeah, you might be a little bit nervous. But so you'd probably check. You'd check to see
Yeah.
what comes up.
Exactly.
But no, if I'm selling a car, or if I run a dealership and I'm selling cars and I know they're good, then ultimately, I feel like it would make more sense even if you know they're not good. Like you just sell them as they actually are, and when you're buying them off, if you're a dealership and you're buying a car off someone, check it.
Yeah. Exactly.
So you know,
Exactly.
and then then you can say to the person selling it, look, here's the photos of it wrapped around a tree or whatever. It's actually only worth this, and we're going to sell it for this plus our margin, and everyone's happy. But if you get known as a dealership for providing the information in all the sales and go, look, here's
Exactly.
the car vertical report alongside all the other stuff, rather than making you only pay for it once,
Yeah.
and you can there's a tiny amount on a sale. Whereas if you're a buyer, every single buyer has to now that probably be nicer for you guys financially if every single buyer ever runs the
Exactly.
car through your website. But I think actually overall it'd be better if all sales had it attached from
Yeah.
the get-go. It would be a much
Yeah.
nicer marketplace to
Exactly.
buy and sell
The
from.
level of trust would be on
Yeah.
another level. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's
That's what we're trying to establish with a B2B segment, because we sell these history checks to dealers,
yeah.
and they, as you said, they show these reports to their customers on their own initiative. I
Yeah.
mean, the customers are not checking the car usually. Maybe they
No.
are, but the dealers are doing it in the first place. So this is a good practice, to boost the reputation, for example. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you approach a dealer and the guys, the salesmen are not saying any details about the car, you might get a little suspicious.
Yeah.
But when somebody insists to see the history report, here's the report, please observe, the
Yeah.
damages and things, because a damage is not a bad thing. It might be a scratch, or it might be a chipped window.
Yeah.
It happens. You can't run away from that.
Yeah.
But when a dealer shows these reports to buyers, they get this sort of like secure feeling.
Yeah.
They get they build their reputation. And we had one case, in Lithuania, actually. It was, I will not mention the brand, but it was an official dealership of the car.
Mm-hmm.
And they are also selling some used cars, some second-hand ones.
Yeah.
And they were selling a car, and it was expensive. It was a car for like 70,000 euros, which is like 62,000, I think,
Yeah.
pounds or something like this. And the customer was like, "Can you provide me the VIN number? Because we check
Yeah.
these the history with the VIN number, not with a license plate,
Yeah.
as guys in the UK do." And the dealer was very defensive from the very beginning. Oh, the car is perfect. You don't need anything. I can guarantee that there has been no accidents. The mile is genuine. But it's suddenly when they gave the VIN number and the customer checked on our platform, they realized the car had damage in Germany for like 50,000 euros, which is
Ooh.
more than half of the value of the
Yeah.
car. And there was a big scandal, actually, and even the media was writing about this case, and the journalist did call me, to ask, like, how did that happen? I had to
Yeah.
explain all the bits and bobs. So
It's
I
crazy.
think the damage done to the dealer, instead of, if he had this history report shown to the customer in the first place, it would be so much better to sell the
So
car
much better.
to sell the car with a discount, for example, because of
Yeah.
some historical accidents or something like this, instead of trying to hide some information. So yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
think
it's
that the dealers are taking these lessons, because we are getting a lot of requests from dealerships, from dealers, and they want to work with us,
yeah.
especially when they buy the car from another country, when they import the car here and there. So
Yeah. It makes so much
tools like
sense.
this is essential.
And if buyers start to use these tools, then dealers have to, because
Exactly.
the cost of getting it wrong, if you try and
It's
sell it and someone
unbearable.
checks it, they're like, you've just lost like your margin for the month or whatever. Like, you've got to sell so many legit cars.
Exactly.
So then could we end up with this situation, which
Yeah.
would be interesting? It would be quite cool, where cars have like a passport, like a digital passport for the car that has all of the information in it. Because we sort of have now, previously, if I'll just pull over here.
Yeah.
For those that are watching, there's like, I'm holding a bunch of box files. There's another one. My old 911 has 3 of these of stuff for it, which is crazy. Like it's there's so much stuff in there from services
Yeah.
and whatever, and it's an old car. But all the sort of newer cars I've bought, probably in the last, I don't know, 10 years at least, all the servicing if you use main dealers, is all digital. So actually, when I sell the car or whatever, you generally don't actually have a copy yourself. You might not have a copy yourself, and you just go, yeah, it's all online somewhere in some dealership. Here's the keys, which that's actually a lot worse. It's okay if you can check it, but I don't know how easy it is to check it as if you're buying a car versus here's a stack or even a USB stick, one or the other with all of the stuff on it.
But you know, we're talking about the fraud, and there are people that fake these documents like you have. They can make these books, you know, these files, these documents, and they can write whatever they like.
That's true.
And the worst thing about this, that you cannot question whether these files are legit. How do you check? You know, this
you have to call each person.
Exactly.
And say,
exactly.
Is this real?
Exactly. So imagine if the car had like 20 years of maintenance.
Yeah.
You're not. It's.
No.
I think it's work for a week to get everything right. You know.
And then if you don't end up buying the car, like, so you've got to, ultimately it's trust. It's like, it does come down to do you trust the person you're buying it off? But yeah, some sort of digital passport would be quite interesting. That only, if you've had it been to an authorized person, only an authorized person can like stamp your car's thing and it's on there, whether it's, I don't know, protected in the blockchain, whatever. Like, you've got this thing that has all of the data for your car in it and you can't mess with it.
Exactly.
Someone's going to be able to mess with it, though, aren't they?
Yeah.
People are smart.
You know, but in a way, it's similar to that because a VIN number, vehicle identification number, is basically the same as our fingerprint. You know, it is unique. So if you can connect all the historical events to that particular chassis number, that's it. There you have it.
Yeah. If you make it mandatory from a legal point of view that if you work on a car, you have to put it into the central system. You have to just stamp it or whatever.
Yeah. But you know, we are going to another paradox because, for example, UK is no longer in the EU, but in the EU we have these paradoxes. For instance, both Sweden and Germany are the members of the EU. But the way they approach the whole, you know, the GDPR thing is very different. For example, if you ask a car seller, German, if you ask what is the VIN number of his car, he might call a police because you know it's his data, it's his mileage. They are mad about this, but in the end, you know, the public interest is not protected, I think. Once the buyer are protected, the public interest is safe. So this is what they have in Sweden. They are 100% transparent in this particular area.
I think it should be logged. I think any person that's got a real reason why they don't want it logged, it's not going to be a good reason, is it? Like,
exactly.
Maybe no one can find it out. I don't like the system in Switzerland. Now, I've not heard a counterpoint with license plates, where you can look up who owns the car and where they live.
Yeah.
Which, if you have like a nice car or just any car, to be honest, if someone pulls, you know, drives like an idiot and cuts in front of you or whatever, you can look up their address and go around their house and go, hey, what the hell are you doing? So it works like that. But if, like with exotics, I've seen it all the time where someone will take a photo of a Pagani or something and they'll get a message being like, hi, can you remove the license plate? And you're like, I understand what you're saying and I get it, but you've bought a Pagani and you're driving it on the road. So
why would people
are going to know your license plate. I guess why you might not want it published like internationally, but the system is like that is a complicated system.
Yeah.
but we don't have that here, and I'm glad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like I'm even now with online content of my personal cars. I
Yeah.
try not to. If it's a car that might live on the street or might live on the road or generally be seen around where I live often, I'll try and never post the plate, like ever. As soon as you've
Okay.
done it once, you might as well do it all the time. But just from like a personal security, whatever, I don't want people to know that's me. I'm at home. I'm not at home. That's where I live. Any of
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's a
This
sort of
is this
side
is you
one.
know this is personal information, but when it comes to information like mileage, accidents
Yeah,
history, and stuff like, it's cars information. It's not person's
yeah,
information. So we have to separate these two things, I think.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be quite interesting if you could look up mileage. You know, someone saying they're driving their car. There was someone I know or know of who was driving. I knew he drove his car like all the time, and he like on Instagram had been on lots of road trips, loads of road trips, like across
Yeah.
Europe, whatever, ever.
Yeah.
And then he sold the car, and you saw the mileage when it was for sale, and you're like, nah, nah, you've just fudged this. But there don't seem to be much repercussions. If you do it and you get away with it, happy days. Like, I don't know what the punishments are for lying about any of these things when you sell the car. Then they don't seem to be too bad.
I don't know what are the fines in the UK, but for example, in France, if you clock the odometer readings, you're fined for like 2 years in prison, and then you get on
Okay.
top of that, you get 27,000 euros fine, which is
That
a
seems like a good
lot. Yeah,
punishment.
yeah,
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in Czech Republic, I think it's about 300 euros.
Yeah, there you go.
If
Why would you
if
not do it?
if that gives you like extra grand value for your
Yeah,
car, why not?
yeah.
You know?
Yeah, if it makes you 400 euros, you're going to do it. Like, well, you
In
might
the end
not,
of the
but
day, you have 100 left. You know.
exactly. I'm just looking at a random Auto Express. They've got an article on mileage clocking and
Yeah.
saying, as part of a 2019 study, 443,000 cars were found to have mileage discrepancies. Now, I don't know what that works out as, like what a discrepancy is, whether it's like it's 10 miles out or they're just like, do you know that when it's said to have a mileage discrepancy? Do you like,
Yeah.
is there a certain amount it has to be out?
Yeah.
Do you know the answer to that or not?
They should explain what they mean, you know, with that number. Because, for instance, we estimate that I think in UK it's about 15% of cars checked on our platform had mileage fraud.
Okay. And then presumably people are possibly only checking on your platform because they think there might be something wrong. Do you know what I mean? If you might just go, nah, it's legit. I know it's one seller. I know that person. I'm not checking it. You might do that. You have to know about the platform.
I mean, in the end of the day, it's not that expensive to check, you know.
No.
But what can it do? It can get you this big advantage in negotiations. You know, when you see more data than, for example, the seller expects you to know, you get this better ground in terms of negotiations. So it's always, I think, worthy investment in this. Yeah.
I've just scanning through this article again. It's come up with a reason why you might clock a car forward, which I'd never thought about. Have you come across this? Apparently, if you have a company car, you know, you get paid for the mileage.
Okay.
But you might be allowed to do 20,000 miles a year and you get whatever, 40p a mile or whatever it is, something like that.
Yeah.
But you've not done the mileage. And it's a company car and like you're not really paying extra. So what? It's going to go back at the end. So people get it clocked. Some people get it clocked so that rather than the 10,000 miles they've done, it's done 20,000 miles and they get a payment for the remaining miles.
Well, we didn't like think how to solve this, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
Not yet.
yeah.
We have
But that's not a
another.
problem.
Yeah, we have another problem to solve.
As a buyer, that is a great problem. Like,
Yeah.
I would very happily buy and pay market price for a car that says it's done 20,000 and has only done 10. Like,
But you know,
servicing
but
would be
you
an issue
wish,
though,
yeah. Servicing would be an issue. You need
because you
to
would,
know that this car had the mileage. You know,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it was moved to another direction. So
Yeah,
yeah,
because you'll have a bigger, at some point in time down the line, you'll have a bigger service bill than should
exactly.
be necessary. But then,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
you might have paid half, a lot less in the interim.
yeah,
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 it's a sort of interesting one.
yeah.
Um, so one of the sort of things is what ends up on the platform and what doesn't. I think we sort of covered that a little bit, didn't we? Like, if it's been through, it's got to be through one of these data points. If it's not been through a data point, if someone's done it themselves at home, it's not going to end up on there, is it,
Yeah,
whatsoever?
it must be digital. You know,
Yeah.
there still are some countries though that have a lot of records, but they are, you know, they're handwritten. It's
Yeah.
not digital. It's
An
another
interesting
problem.
one that
Yeah.
I have an E208 Peugeot
Hmm.
as a lease, which is going back, and I wish I'd
Okay.
bought it because that would have been a better financial situation. But whatever. And I'm looking at probably buying another small EV. But one thing that's is quite difficult, and not many people tell you, is information about the battery.
Hmm.
There's only a few. I've only heard of one, but I'm sure there must be more people selling EVs in the UK that do like some analytical tests on the car and give you some battery information. A bit like, I don't know whether on a Tesla you can just press a button and it tells you. They probably do, but I imagine every other manufacturer does not. Um, do you get? Are you getting ways of pulling this information into the report?
I think we don't have and will not have in the near future such information about the exact, you know, the state of exact battery.
Yeah.
It's, it, you know, in electric cars, the battery life can be also reset, and it needs
Okay.
for car to be, you know, charged for a couple of times to get to set the number back, you know. So I heard stories how people are, they were buying an electric car with clocked odometer, but the battery life, the computer showed the battery life was pretty good, you know.
Yeah.
But after like a couple of weeks, it started to degrade, you know, the number
Yeah.
was decreasing. So yeah, this is a big problem. I think um, we don't know how to solve this yet.
I guess.
Well, you have to rely on the, you know, there should be a ratio of like mileage and the battery life. Somehow
Yeah.
they should be connected, but the way people charge their cars are also different, whether
Yes.
it's high power, it's high current, or it's low power. Do you charge it all the way up to 100%, or
On
do
a
you charge it to
supercharger or whatever. Yeah.
80%? Yeah, exactly. That all that depends, you know. So I think it's a very difficult thing to measure. Although I think there are some cars that are relatively easy to inspect the batteries. For example, we have some guys that are inspecting. I think they are doing only with Nissan Leafs because they know
Mhm.
how these cars
Yeah.
work, and they have some maybe equipment, some devices that connects to the actual battery, and
Yeah.
it shows the actual reading. So it's 100% trustable, you know, information. But all the manufacturers are having like different infrastructure of their like
Yeah.
electrical system, so it's impossible to apply this thing for everyone, you know, and this is a problem.
Yeah. I
I,
guess this will
I think, you
form.
know, yeah, I think in general, you know, electric cars, there are so many things that we don't know about them. We don't know
Yeah.
what is it going to be in the future. What happens with a 20 years old electric car, with the Audi e-tron that is like 25 years old?
Yeah.
Do you like? Is the buyer going to replace the battery because the range will be like, I don't know, 50 miles after
Yeah.
25 years?
Yeah.
So this is a problem. Another problem is also from the user's point of view. If the people are parking the car in the underground, parking areas, like below their apartments, what happens if the car caught fire?
Yeah.
Have you seen any videos with Teslas being on fire?
Yes.
How do you fight this? I have no idea actually. So it's a
It's because if you're a manufacturer now, I presume Tesla have it. I've only seen it at Rimats,
yeah,
where there was a tour of the factory, and they're like, "This is where we assemble the battery packs, and this." All these ducts and cables. Basically, we can fill this room full of water, and it's a big room, and we have massive amounts of water that we just fill the freaking room with water, and it's going to keep burning until it's all gone. It does not go out. It just
exactly.
keeps going, doesn't it? You can't. You cannot put the fire out.
I
I think you
I
have to wait.
was I think I saw, was it Yalopnik? I'm not sure which blog it was. There was a story about a Tesla. I think it was a P100D, the most powerful version
Yeah,
at
at
the
the time,
time.
yeah,
It was on the track day, and the car caught fire. So they were like the firefighters were spilling water like for hours,
yeah,
and the fire was blazing all over the place. So what they did, they took this the machine that digs a hole. I'm not
yeah,
sure how you call it, and they pushed the car into the hole and then filled with water.
yeah,
And after like hours, the car was done.
yeah.
So
I
it's
know another
so
thing people do
what
is
happens? What happens if the car is on fire in the middle of the night?
yeah,
Is the whole building going to be on fire? I'm not. I don't have the answer. This is the thing that we need to think of, because I think the UK is going to electrification by 2030.
yeah. Apparently, yeah.
So it's not
It's
a lot
pretty
of
soon.
time to get to the solution.
Yeah, and if you're in an underground car park, yeah, you've
Exactly.
got a, and it's above a building. You've got a real
Exactly.
problem. I know another way they dispose of, like, sort of sort them out, is they get a big container, fill a container with water, and then they drop,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
a big steel container, and they drop the car in. But that's all very well, and these are quite edge cases. Like it's
Yeah.
super rare for this to happen,
Yeah.
but it can happen,
Exactly.
and it is quite worse. I saw a video. It was someone's security video. They had a Taycan. This was quite early. I think they had a Taycan
Yeah.
Turbo S, and it was in their garage, and there was like thermal runaway, and I think it sort of exploded, and it just like there was a big problem. You would not
Yeah,
have wanted
because
that in
you
your
know
house.
there is so much energy in the battery. It
So
it
much.
all needs to burn. So
Yeah.
I
I
have no
think
idea what should they do.
I imagine there's lots around design and the evolution of battery packs and how I
Yeah.
think you can now, some of the ways they're putting packs together, there's much less chance of like a runaway situation. And like,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot going on in that space to make them a lot safer.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that probably all people that are sort of anti-EV are going to go, yeah, they're all going to explode. And like, the reality is they're not all going to explode, but it is a
Exactly.
situation that they do
Yeah.
need to, they presumably are looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting space. I'm struggling at the moment trying to choose the next EV that I buy, because it's just like I look at everything going on and go, if it's going to be so different in like 2 years' time.
Exactly.
and 5 years time and 10 years time. So I struggle to go, yeah, I'm going to spend money on something now that like really could be, it won't be obsolete, but if let's say your range,
Yeah.
our little electric car only really gets used around town. So ultimately it doesn't need very much range, but we do
Yeah.
longer trips. And in winter, the range is much less. So
Yeah.
if that went down by 20%, there comes a point when your car becomes unusable for you, depending on how far you drive. Let's say you need to do 100 miles. If your car dips below 100 miles, you just can't use it at all. Like,
Exactly.
um, so it seems like with Tesla and their battery packs, like the Model S's that have been around forever, they're still going pretty strong. They're
Yeah.
not they've
Yeah.
not hit that 80% degradation over 10 years, which is what everyone's sort of,
Yeah.
saying that they're done.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But you
it's
know, it's I think not a lot of years already passed. So I have no idea what's going on, how it's going to be in the future, because now Tesla Model S, I think it's about 9, 8 years. The car
yeah,
is already in on the market. But what happens after 15 years? So this is
yeah.
I don't know. I
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
I think, and especially look at, did you see the latest Tesla presentation that was like a
Yeah.
week ago,
Yeah.
a few days ago, about, their evolution of their platform and the next car, etc., and vertical integration, simplification, all that sort of stuff. And you go, oh, okay. So a Tesla Model 3, even now, when you compare it to other cars, it's like reasonably cheap as an EV. If
Yeah.
they do all the stuff they're going to do, or say they're going to do, because there's sometimes a bit of a difference between what they say and what they are going to do, and they make the next generation of cars, but at another chunk lower and still maintaining their profit margins, you kind of look at other manufacturers and go, you guys are, whether you want to buy a Tesla is a different matter, like whether you like them or not. But it's going to make it really difficult for other manufacturers if they can
Yes.
knock off 50% of the costs or 40% price reduction in their cars.
Yeah.
And then, like, if your car costs, the numbers they're sort of aiming, I think people are saying it's like a $25,000 EV that could have 200 miles of range or 250 miles of range or something.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to be a pretty cheap car to own.
Exactly. I remember the early days of Tesla. Everyone, every like experts and every like automotive people, they were like very not sure about the future of Tesla,
Yeah.
because the traditional manufacturers are they have so much more experience in the industry.
Yeah.
But what they did prove is that to build an EV, you don't need as much experience as you used to have.
Yeah.
So I think this is a game changing thing. And also, speaking of EVs, China is doing also massive developments regarding
Massive.
the EVs. Yeah, and I think I was reading somewhere that by 2025, Europe will be an importer of new cars instead of exporter. They will
That's,
import more cars than they will export.
yeah, very
So
possibly. If,
yeah,
like, companies like
because
BYD,
yeah.
how many cars do they
There
make a
are
year?
tens, if not hundreds, of different companies making EVs like Neos,
Yeah.
BIDs, and I couldn't mention 5 companies from China, but the level that they operate is through the
Yeah.
roof.
I know, like, I had not seen a BYD, and there's only, I think we've got the Atto 3 now, is like the new one that's coming out here, but they've said we're moving to the UK, we're going to start selling cars, and then they've said some number of dealerships they're going to have, and it's not like we're going to have I'm just going to pick the number 10. I don't know what the number is, but I feel like, it's something like that. But we're going to have them by the end of this year. And they've just announced they've opened 2, I think, dealerships today. And these are like actual dealerships. So by the end of the year, there's going to be a bunch of BYD dealerships. I was driving around this morning and I saw one of the London EV buses. They're made by BYD. I did not know that. I just saw it on the front and was like, oh, right, okay. So they already make all the
They're
buses
already
here.
there.
Yeah. And then like, you look at some of the cars and go, okay, it's not got the Germanness of the, that sort of thing, but it's not like, they are not making crap cars. They are making good cars, and they make millions of them.
Speaking of like the quality of cars, I think we have to agree on this, that cars never felt so similar between different manufacturers before. Because I remember, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, if you drive a Mercedes and then you drive a Volkswagen, you can see a huge difference in everything, in the layout of the interior, the quality of materials, everything. You can feel massive difference. But now it's the competition is somewhere. It's very similar. Cars are very similar, and when it comes to these big groups like Volkswagen Group, VAG, all the cars from Volkswagen, from Audi, from Seat, from Cupra, they are all the same basically. You have this exactly the same, multimedia systems, dashboards, seating positions. They feel the same. The way the suspension work.
Yeah.
If you drive a Golf, if you drive an Audi Q3, it's the same car basically,
Yeah.
So
it takes away the value, the premium value of some of these things, because you go like my little Peugeot. It's a good car. Like, it's a good car. It's nice interior, like nice infotainment. It could probably be a bit better, but it's like pretty decent. And you go, 15 years ago, I would not have considered it at all.
Exactly. It feels more premium than it is, actually.
Yeah.
What do you think about it?
Yeah. It's an interesting one. So you have this Association of Automotive Intelligence. What exactly? What can you tell me a little bit about this?
Yeah, this is our newest initiative. It's a non-profit organization that we are trying. What we are trying to do is we are trying to change some things in the used car markets, in the whole industry as a whole. Mostly, different car dealers, they have different problems. For example, some Romanian car dealers have some problems. Polish car dealers have another problems. So what we're trying to do, we are trying to unite them, and then we're trying to address these problems to the authorities, to explain that this is bad because of A, B, C, and D, maybe there are some possibilities to exchange the experience. For example, if guys in Romania, they still can, for example, sell a car, but give a buyer German license agreement, not purchase agreement. And then this is the way the seller erases himself from the transaction, So in Lithuania, we fixed this. The authorities fixed this. So now we can exchange the whole experience and make it, make the whole car trading environment safer. So this is the ultimate goal. Yeah.
Nice. What are some of the steps you're, pushing at right now? What have been some of the tricky bits?
Yeah, now I think it's an early stage of the whole association. So we are still onboarding the members, like every day or every 2 days. We have a meeting, an online meeting with dealers from foreign countries, and we are presenting this whole idea. So what at this particular stage, what we need is them to believe in the idea, and that having the weight of the whole market, with the weight of the whole market, we can address these issues, as I said, to the authorities or even to the global organizations, like European Commission. Because, for example, the whole GDPR thing, as I said, the paradox of data protection, the public interest, is also, I think it's not fair in the end of the day. It's the public interest is not protected in the end of the day. So what we are trying to establish with the association is to change that.
It sounds like a good idea. All right. Well, I normally wrap these up with 5 questions. You ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Do you have a most memorable driving trip or journey?
I think I do. My wife used to work in Italy, and I was in Lithuania, and I was like flying back and forth every like month or two.
Yeah.
But then I bought a car. I bought a Mark III MR2 Roadster, the Toyota, and I decided to take it there to Italy in one take. So basically, I left in the morning, in the night, and in 20 hours, I think I covered about 1,900 kilometers, which is a lot when you think about it. Yes,
that is a lot.
Yeah, but the coolest thing is that I still had some energy left, because when I left the country, I was like going through Poland, through Czech Republic, through Austria, and then Italy. So right after I crossed the border of Czech Republic, there was a massive thunderstorm, and it was going like forever till the middle of Austria. So I was always busy, and it was never boring, because I was driving, and there is lightning, there is wind, there is rain, the wiper blades are going, It was lovely. It was actually lovely. And
that is
such a long trip. I arrived to the place, and I said, I could do 500 kilometers more. But usually now, after like 300 or 400 kilometers, I'm done. I don't want to be driving anymore.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of like the longest time-wise. Because you can spend a really long time traveling in a car, but not actually cover a massive distance. But I think the furthest I've probably done, not that far, would be like UK to Austria. And I don't know, I think that was like an 18 hours or something, some really seriously long time. But
you had some, perhaps you had some good roads through Germany.
Yes.
Because you have these autobahns, But when you go through Poland, through Czech Republic, it's completely different. You have these road constructions, these like potholes.
Yeah,
it's completely different experience. You're very much involved in the whole process. So
yeah. I did a drive on the Gumball 3000 actually, and one of the legs was St. Petersburg to where is it? Where do we end up? We ended up in Riga, but I don't know where we stopped. And that drive was a similar sort of. You're never on a motorway. You never seem to ever be on a motorway. Just like kind of long country roads, and then you'd be driving along, and then suddenly half the road is just missing for 300 meters of just like the road has gone. You drop down like whatever 10 centimeters, and we were obviously everyone was in sports cars and stuff. It was quite funny. And then you sort of pop back up and carry on, and those sorts of trips where your stuff is going on. There's things to do, things to see, changing scenery, people and whatever, are nowhere near as draining as sitting in traffic. Like just stop, start, stop, start, or slow behind another car for just hours and hours and hours.
Exactly.
But yeah, they stick.
Sometimes me and my friends, it's another thing. It's not the favorite, the most memorable drive or something like this. But usually in summer we have with friends these meetings where we gather like 10 cars and we go to the coolest roads. But after each like 20 or 30 kilometers, we swap seats,
Oh, nice.
we sit in another car. And this is absolutely lovely experience because then you get to try the cars like R129 Mercedes
Nice.
Benz
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
SL500, or BMW Z4M Coupe,
Yeah.
something like this, or a Corvette, or Viper, cars like these. It's cool.
Yeah, that aspect of a road trip, I haven't done a road trip in a while actually, but we used to get probably 4 or 5 cars together and do a bit of a European road trip. And like you said, actually, that was always a lot of fun, and we didn't necessarily swap around that much. Um,
Okay.
but swapping around, that is quite a fun, especially if you're just a passenger and you're driving a bit,
Yeah.
but you're a passenger.
Yeah.
Like swapping into the other cars is great. Like you get to experience different cars. You're chatting to someone else.
Exactly.
You see the whole thing through a different angle. If someone else is driving your car, you get to see your car. You get to hear your
Yeah.
car. Like
Yeah.
such a
Yeah.
different experience. I
Yeah.
don't know whether you saw it's just popped into my head, the Valkyrie or the launch sort of videos
Yeah.
that came
Yeah.
out last week.
Yeah. Yeah. I did.
One of the things that stuck in my mind, and I don't know whether it's just the difficulty of recording noise in a car, but the in-car noise of that car doesn't sound anywhere near as good as the outside sound.
Exactly.
And like
Exactly.
all the exterior shots just are unbelievable from a noise point of
Yeah.
view, but
Yeah.
all the inside stuff just kind of sounds it just doesn't sound anywhere near as good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you get that thing, I don't know whether you've ever done it, where if you drive with some mates in the same cars, obviously we're not talking about a Valkyrie, but if you had a Valkyrie and some mates that had Valkyries, when your friend goes past you and you've got the same car, you're like, oh, that's what mine sounds like. I'm
Yeah.
looking
Yeah.
at that
Yeah. Yeah.
car. I bought this car because I love that car. But when I drive it,
Yeah.
I don't get to see it and I don't get to hear it
Exactly.
anywhere near the same as someone else. So that's definitely a really good part of driving with other people. What do you think is the most undervalued car at the moment?
I think this is a difficult one. I
It is.
mean, I usually find myself scrolling on sites like eBay or
Yeah.
any other similar sites. Undervalued car. I could actually say that the Mark III generation of the Toyota MR2 might be undervalued because these are much more rare when compared to Miatas, for instance.
Yeah.
But they will never be as valuable as Honda S2000, for example.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could see maybe some Mercedes Benz 190, the 2.3 16 valve, the Cosworth engine. These cars are quite
Yeah.
cool
Super
cars.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. If you could only drive one car for the rest of your life, and it can be a sports car, it doesn't have to do like everything, what would it be?
Perhaps a 911. I think the 911 is the ultimate car.
And then which would you pick?
This is the most difficult. In terms of looks, for example, the generation that I like the most is the 993, the last air-cooled cars.
Interesting.
I absolutely love these cars, and I saw one GT2 version in Italy. It was absolutely brilliant. But I believe life with such a car would be so difficult. It's not comfortable. The controls and the seating position might be not good enough. So perhaps it would be a modern 911, maybe I love the GT3 touring version of the car. I
Yeah,
absolutely love that one.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I really like the 991 Gen 2 touring as like,
yeah,
well, that was the only touring, but that
yeah.
is like, it's just an amazing shape. And then actually 993, if I just think about shape of car, I really like the turbo. I think
Yeah,
the turbo is a really cool looking car.
yeah.
Um, I actually got to drive a GT2 recently, about,
Wow,
I don't know, 9 months ago. It
wow.
was for sale on an auction, and I got to drive it beforehand. And it's tricky driving a car like that because you don't know whether it's a good example. You don't have the history. You don't
Yeah,
like. I didn't know anything about the owner really, other than just
yeah,
like, here's the car, here's the keys, you can go and have a drive. Um, and it was just, yeah, like super raw, all the stuff. But it was also on really old tires, and I don't know,
yeah.
hadn't been driven that much, so you're like, I've got to be careful here.
You
But a
know,
really cool looking thing.
I think when you realize what is the value of the car, you're you're limited by that,
You
by
are,
only knowing what is the value of the GT2, because these are monstrous prices
yeah,
for these cars. So yeah,
and yeah, and then it's. I don't think you can ever drive. Some people do, but I don't. I would never drive someone else's car like I would drive my own car.
exactly, exactly.
And you can take that however you want, because people
Yeah,
drive other people's cars
yeah,
in really bad ways and they wouldn't do it the
yeah.
same. But I would never push someone else's car, I don't think, the same as I would push my car, just
You
to
know,
a level.
when I see we have these like car sharing platforms, you know, when I
Mm.
see people smashing these cars like
Yeah.
there's no tomorrow, I'm like, why would you do that? You know, it's a E208. Why would you do that
Yeah.
with a Peugeot? You know, is this a Ferrari? No, it's not. You're not
Okay,
going
maybe
to pull some records. You know, yeah.
maybe if it was a rental, maybe I would. No, no, I would drive my own car harder than someone else.
Yeah,
If it's a
exactly,
person's
exactly,
car that's let me drive it,
exactly,
it's
exactly.
their car. I don't want to, mess it up. What do you think is the most interesting car to you at the moment? What are you Googling? What are you looking up? What are you going, that's,
I absolutely love the idea of the TVR Sagaris. I mean, for me,
ooh,
it is such an exotic car. It's completely different in every aspect. The way you look at it, you know, the way the interior is created, the door opening on the mirrors, the buttons. You know,
yeah,
quite recently, I think Piston Heads they published a video of the Sagaris review. It's a beautiful piece of a machinery, I think.
it is. That is a car that it was the first and only TVR that I've ever been interested in, really. And
Yeah.
I just remember when it came out, I was about that. It was about that age where you're like, "Ooh, what is this?" And
Hmm.
you could show me pictures of older TVRs, and I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." Show me a Cigaris, I'm like, "No, but this is cool." And
Exactly.
they're really cool. I like if I had I don't know 50 cars, 100 cars, one of those like would you have a Cigaris in there just as like a memory and a cool thing? And I bet they're quite fun to drive. Like, yeah, absolutely.
I absolutely love the way they are very unique, very like you know very special. These side exhausts, you know, the transparent spoiler,
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
speedometer, you know,
The
20.
flip
The
paint.
top speed is 20. Yeah, I loved how Jeremy Clarkson. I think he said that the the designers were lunatics, and then the car was hit with an axe. So that basically describes the whole car, you know.
It
But
is,
it looks mega for me.
and yeah, and they have done. If you bought a Cigaris like 5 years ago, they're now like I'm just having a look on Piston Heads in terms of pounds. It's like £80,000 for a Cigaris.
Yeah,
They were
yeah,
like
yeah,
40, 30 when I
yeah.
remember last looking. But
Actually, the
it's
prices of used cars are going through the roof. I mean, I saw someone paying for the Acura Integra Type R in the
mhm.
States $150,000 for the DC2 Integra.
Yeah. It's
I think people have too much money in the end of the
I
day.
think some people have too much money and they want to buy some of these cars. What was it? There was a Ford Escort, what was it? A Cosworth
Cosworth.
that sold a couple of weeks ago for £500,000-600,000 or something, whatever dollars. I don't know.
I
It was
think
an
it was
obscene
Sierra.
amount
It
of
was
money.
Sierra.
Sierra
It was
Cosworth,
Ford
yeah.
Sierra Cosworth. Yeah.
Like, fair enough. Someone wanted to buy it, and
I
they
think it
wanted to
was
spend the money.
RS 500, the most powerful version. Lovely car, but $500,000 for such a thing. I think
Yeah,
people have too much money.
maybe I don't know. There was two people that owned that car when they were little, and they're now billionaires, and they're like, "No, I want that one." I don't know.
Exactly.
Crazy, but
Yeah.
I do wonder. You make these calls, and then you go, "That one would never be one for me." But in 10 years' time, what cars are we looking at now that are worth? Like, is a TVR cigar is going to be worth 200 grand in 10 years' time? Who knows? It could be.
Who knows? It could
I
be.
could
It could be
see.
3 years. 3 years from now, it
Yeah,
could be.
I could see,
We don't know.
the good example with a good history that's not been crashed, that's verified,
Exactly.
and all that sort of stuff. And you go, right, there's not that many of those. And there's a bunch of people, let's say like us, that go, I think they're really cool. And then you've earned a lot of money and you're like, but I want one.
Exactly.
It could happen. It could happen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Final question. 5-car
Yeah.
garage, unlimited value.
Unlimited value for 5 cars. Very. Also, I think every day I could come up with another set of 5 cars.
Yes.
But for me, perhaps I would have an AE86. One of the
Nice.
car would be a AE86 with a newer generation 20 valve, engine with a individual throttle bodies and things like that. Period correct styling.
Yeah.
Watanabe wheels, things like that. So
Nice.
this would be it. Then there would be perhaps the best daily car in the world, a fully kitted E-Class Mercedes-Benz estate car. Because the way these cars drive, I own actually one 2017 model.
Nice.
And I don't imagine a better car because it's silent, it's good for our shitty roads. Sorry for the language.
That's right.
It's economical, practical, comfortable, and the audio quality, the system, the speakers are brilliant. So that's what you need in a longer trips, So that would be a good E-Class, but not the AMG, because these are equipped with these big tires that are not very good at potholes thing,
Yeah, I would agree. I have an E-Class estate, but I have the stupid one. I have the E63, and
okay.
I got it because I wanted the V8.
Yeah,
I've never had a V8 like that, and I was like, I want to try it. It sounds awesome. And then after about a month, I was like, I should have probably bought the 350D or something, or a 53 or anything that didn't have the massive wheels, the wide wheels, like all the stuff, because it's not as comfy. It's pretty good. I've got the newest facelift, but like, I know if I had a lower down model, it would be much more chilled out, which is kind of what that car's for. But the E-Class platform as an estate, I still believe is the best of the bunch of that.
Yeah.
It's got the most space by quite a long way of the nicer German ones.
And the acoustic comfort, the sound insulation is beautiful. These cars, I'm like going like, what is it, like about perhaps 90 miles per hour when I'm going to the seaside.
Yeah.
And it's silent, I can still whisper and guys are hearing what I'm saying. Where in the Audi similar models or BMW, it's good, but not as good as the
not as good. Yeah, the AMG is worse. It's got
Yeah.
too much tire
So
noise.
okay, another car, because we have quite an aggressive winter. I would need something with all-wheel drive and proper differentials.
Yeah.
That would be a Subaru Impreza 22B,
Nice.
this bad boy version,
Yeah.
Then it would be perhaps a 911 GT3 RS, maybe for the track day experience.
Would you get the
And
current one?
ultimately, the current one I
992?
think is, why not? I quite fancy the
Why
car.
not? Yeah.
Yeah. And if the budget is unlimited, and if
Yeah,
the
it
world
is.
is an ideal place, a McLaren F1.
Which,
For me, this is the ultimate car in the history. I think even the GMA T50, it's not going to be as cool as the F1 is. I mean, the
no.
performance-wise, it will be on another level.
Yeah.
But the F1, the design, I absolutely love the car, and I love the stories from Mr. Murray. I heard hours of him speaking about the car, and I'm a big fan of Mr. Gordon Murray.
Yeah.
The car is a masterpiece.
That's a really interesting one because for me, F1 and like GTR, because I think the GTR looks the coolest, short tail has been like at the top of the tree for a long, long
Yeah.
time. Zonda was up there for a long, long
Yeah,
time,
yeah,
but I think
yeah.
F1 GTR is probably like a bit above that.
Yeah.
And then since these new cars, the T50 and the T33,
Yeah.
T50 I think looks a bit funny. Just doesn't quite.
I don't
like the
quite
fan.
get it, Yeah, I don't like the fan. The rear end looks a little bit, compromised. If
It's
you
a
ask
bit
me.
weird.
Yeah.
But when you hear him talk about it and why, etc., I would, in the dream situation, I would be able
Yeah.
to drive a T33 and then a
Yeah.
T50 back to back, maybe with an F1 GTR and an F1. Why not?
Yeah.
And see what the difference is between a T33, which doesn't have the fan, and
Yeah.
a T50, which does have the fan. And then maybe you drive it and go, oh, yeah, but it's way better on the road because it doesn't have to have so much downforce, whatever all the stuff
Yeah.
is. But I imagine as a car to own, I see like a F1 GTR for me is like the poster car. Like, I
Yeah.
just look
Exactly.
at it and go, I imagine driving it would be very cool, but driving something like a T33 it's probably going to be, I like kind of modern-y stuff, and I imagine
Yeah.
the engine's going to be more rowdy, it's probably going to ride better, the brakes are going to be better, the tech, all the stuff's going to be
Yeah.
in theory
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
Maybe something like that, but someone's going to line them up and I've got to be able to drive them. That's the
Yeah. I get what you're saying, but I'm
yeah.
not resigning my F1. F1 is on the
No.
list.
That's on the list. That car is
It's right there. There is an F40, F50, and F1. I think these are three, for me, very ultimate cars.
Yeah.
Very.
All very, very cool. Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
It's been good. To chat. And
yeah,
I will definitely be using your website to look up a few cars.
Give it a try, definitely. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks very much.
Okay. Thank you. Bye bye.